Alright, hello everybody. Welcome to one of the first videos of me documenting my creative journey and learning different things and doing stuff. For this one, I'm going to be talking about a project that I've been working on in Blender, specifically an animation project. Now the setup for these videos is basic, it's just me talking about what I'm doing, some things attached to it, some technical stuff around it, and maybe showing a little bit of what I'm trying to do. So let's begin with this kind of animation that I've been working on for a little while. So okay, here we are. Big, sprawling city, and that's about it with these two characters right here, as you can see with the rigs. Now before going into the animation side of things, I'll talk a little bit about the setting for this kind of thing I'm trying to do. So for this specific animation, there's going to be 2 different settings and roughly 3 different scenes. This is scene 1. The other 2 scenes I haven't really animated because I'm still trying to finish up scene 1. But in this one, it starts off with these 2 characters kind of meeting up in a little bit of the introductory fight. Now the city in itself, if I switch to a material view, see, big sprawling city, a bunch of different buildings, and a couple other smaller buildings within buildings, and all that. Now this one, I did not make it. That would take a really long time, and, you know, getting a little attention to details would be very difficult. So I went online, looked for a good city map, and got it, and it has a lot of attention to detail and is really good, and it is free to use for anybody. Now for the actual setting, I didn't change much to the city, just a couple of the textures, because they had some actual company names and all that, and I'm not really one to show off a company without getting at least a little bit of revenue or something out of it. So now let's get on to the animation part. Now of course with this first animation I don't want to reveal too much, as that would kind of ruin the surprise for what I'm trying to go with, but of course still want to show I'm doing this stuff, you know, with the advent of lazy text prompt writers plugging their stuff into a machine and having it spit out some slop. So of course I do have to show at least a little bit of stuff, especially since, you know, I'm essentially coming out of the woodworks with this, with no previous history of anything. So as you can see, the 2 characters are the Doomslayer from the Eternal, and V1 from the Ultra Kill game. So let's start off first with V1 because I have a bit more in-betweens and a bit more detailed animation. Now to not be too specific of the scenes, I'm just going to show off a couple key poses, or a couple in-betweens that kind of showcase the animation. Now as you can see with the frame density, it's not timed at all. So if I were to just play this all the way, it would look very weird as nothing's really timed and all the stuff is just kind of laid out since the animation's not yet in the timing phase. Now starting here, I have V1 in a pose, which in poses you gotta consider a lot of things. It's not just put the character in a specific pose, you gotta make it look a certain way so it's a little bit more interesting, a little bit better, and you also gotta really focus on the movement of the body. Because even though V1 is a robot, V1 is at least depicted as having really smooth and kind of human-like movements, again with a couple robotic quirks here and there. But here V1 is essentially just kind of near the dumpster looking for a couple little critters to squish up for some blood, as V1 would typically do. And here, you know, this little part where he finds a little rat, it goes from this little pose where he's static, kind of searching the area, thinking and all that, in anticipation, to then some in-betweens to the grab, and then some in-betweens to then him pulling the rat out. And as you can see, the little rat's right there, just a flat plane with a rat texture, slightly rigged so it can fit in V1's hand. And with animating, it's just a bunch of rotating and shifting of different bones and armature. You're just essentially pressing the rotate key on specific axis or no axis, and the grab key, and that's how you're mostly animating. Alright, for this little pose, as you can see, V1's coming in there with little slab, charging it up to shoot the Slayer straight in the dome. Then after that it kind of moves some stuff, and then this little section right here, which is a run animation part, or it goes into a run. Here V1 runs, does some stuff, there's going to be a little action sequence. This kind of just shows off V1 being very agile. So after this part, V1 essentially just jumps around the buildings and stuff. You know, right here, a couple in-betweens of V1 just going crazy. And then the first contact made by the Doomslayer. And speaking of that fella, let's start to look at him, as I'm currently, time of recording, doing some in-betweens for the Slayer to finally actually start the timing process. So as you can see, the Doomslayer is starting off in a walking cycle with one of the contact poses. Now, of course, I can go into a lot of depth about every little thing and all that, but I'll try to keep it short, especially for the video. For this part, he has his gun. There's a couple in-betweens of him walking. You know, of course, 1 or 2 poses of the walk cycle are skipped, but they'll be added in later. Here, a couple in-betweens, he points his gun, shoots a couple stuff, a couple more in-betweens of him moving around with the gun. Some things about these poses is that the gun is not moving too much because it's stable. He's aiming it at V1, so he doesn't want it to move around too uncontrollably. Right after this, he takes a couple shots at V1, and the guns didn't have the mods that you typically have in Eternal. And I'm not really good at modeling and really not good at all at UVs and texturing, so let's just imagine that the mods are working as they should, even though it doesn't look like it. And then this part, V1 comes down here. Of course, V1 moves a lot faster than a demon, and the Slayer is taken a little bit by surprise, which is how V1's able to get this shot off. Okay, after that, couple more stuff goes down, more shenanigans between these two. And then with the Doom weapons, since the Doom rig only came with the Slayer, I had to rig up the weapons. And of course, for this animation, not every single bit of their arsenal is going to be used. You know, majority for each character, but not all of them, since they have a lot of weapons, and to add every weapon in, or every little thing they can do, would be a bit difficult, and typically in a fight between these two, they may not actually use all their weapons. And then this part, he starts to use one of his more iconic guns, which is the shotgun. And one thing with the shotgun, which I really want to talk about, this rig is quite important and quite difficult to get down, because the shotgun has a large hook to it that you can shoot out and grab onto enemies. And the chain, at least from, you know, how you play the game and all that, is infinitely extending. So I had to really watch a couple tutorials and really figure out how to do that and how to have that work. And after a bit of, you know, headaches and stuff, it works, and it has an infinite chain. Alright, so that was essentially the whole idea of the scene and a couple of the things that I've started doing. And I'll make another little video about specifically the scenes, especially the one in Hell. And not really talking about the animation, as I haven't done that, or I don't want to really show too much there, because that'll be the more action-packed part. So if you're interested in at least looking at what the scene will look like, or might look like, then head on over to the second channel, or the video linked in the description when it comes out, so you can see the other little part of this video.